All right, we're just waiting for people to jump in here. We're going to get started momentarily. All righty, I think I got all my screens set up. Give me 1 second. All right, well, we're going to get started here. Welcome to today's webinar, AI Without the Hype, what it can do for your business right now. Today, we're going to be focusing on some practical applications and some really thoughtful exercises to help you get started with AI in a meaningful way. Probably the number one conversation we're having with customers, prospects today. So there's a lot out there in the news. Just really hoping to maybe bring some more practical application rather than just talking about it in a fluffy way. So I'm going to be your host today. My name is Nick Martin. I'm the CEO of Main Street IT Solutions, a technology advisory firm in New Holland, Pennsylvania. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn using the QR code. Primarily, we do a lot of work with manufacturing, construction, finance, and a number of other SMB firms. But today, our practicality, we're going to maybe stick around manufacturing just as maybe a highlight into our future here together. So just kind of keep that in mind. I want you to really think about you and your business as we go through today. So uh, let's let's advance ahead. So let's start by acknowledging today when you think about AI, the obvious. AI feels like it's everywhere. Every vendor says they are AI powered. Every news headline that makes it sounds like AI is going to save your business or totally destroy it. And honestly, depending on the day, it feels like somehow going to do both. So if you're a decision maker at your business, that's been exhausting. I know it's been exhausting for me personally as I try to take in all the information. And so when we talk to different business owners, there's two perspectives that consistently come up. On one side, there's a group that understands AI, they utilize it, they get it, and they've really fully invested in it. And really on the other side of things, there's a lot of skepticism and questions. And so, how does it work? How does it function in a real business with real people, real customers, and real constraints? And probably the most important one is, where do we even start? So the tension is pretty normal. I would say the challenge today isn't that there aren't enough tools. It's the problem is really that there's too many tools, too much conflicting advice, and really knowing is explaining where AI actually fits into your business. And so that's something we're hoping to resolve today. It's about showing you a new tool that's going to hopefully transform your business, and it's definitely not about replacing people. I know that's one fear that comes up quite a bit is that people think it's going to replace them somehow. And I want to one of the goals today is to show is to slow down and look at how AI can realistically help your business right now. So we'll cover where it's useful today, where it still falls short, and how to start using AIs that are make you work easier without adding chaos, extra tasks, or risks. So in other words, really, we're going to look at how to make it more meaningful. So we'll close our session today with a live demo. So that's one of the things that's unique about the webinar today is I'll be working through a live demo about using ChatGPT. And I'm using ChatGPT just because it's super flexible and gives access to a lot of free items in case you don't have an AI tool, but it can really be used with any AI tool. So I don't want to spend much time on this, but I really want to make sure that people have a really foundational understanding of what AI actually is. So we're going to just take a few minutes. It won't be long, I promise. And we're going to really talk about the foundations of what AI actually is. Hopefully, everybody knows AI stands for artificial intelligence. And really, at its core, it's a software that recognizes patterns in data and makes predictions based on that data. And honestly, that's it. It's never going to think like people do. It will never have the same intent or judgment. It's analyzing information and predicting what comes next. Now, honestly, here's where things do get important, though. Different types of AI, excuse me, are designed to do different things. Some AI was built to sort and filter information, and that's been around for a really long time. Some generate images and text. Others are built to really take action within software systems. Because they're all built differently, not all AI tools carry the same level of risk. One important thing to know is AI itself is not new, as I've just alluded to. Many forms of it have been around for many years and are probably already part of your business without you even realizing it. Spam filters, autocorrect, Grammarly, a whole company created out of this context is are systems that sort through large amounts of information. They're all using AI. So probably right now you're hearing a lot of terms being thrown around: generative AI, agentic AI, assistants, co-pilots. Honestly, the list goes on, but they don't really explain what they are. So we're just going to really focus on the simplicity today. So rather than trying to cover every type of AI, we're going to focus on the type that's most relevant today and practical for small businesses right now. And that's generative AI. This form of AI is increasingly showing up every day in everyday tools, and it's probably the one that can start creating value for your business today without requiring any major system changes or automation projects. So let's quick take a look at what generative AI actually is and what it does. So generative AI is designed to create drafts and content, generate emails, social posts, summaries, outlines, or even simple graphics. But it does that in response to a prompt. It does not act on its own, and it waits for direction. So think of a very fast assistant that helps you get started. You tell it what you need, it produces a draft, then it stops. And that's an important distinction. You stay in control. You review the output, decide what's accurate, and determine what should be shared. And because of that, generative AI is not a replacement. It's not a replacement for judgment. It's a tool that supports the work you're already doing. And so that leads us to kind of an important mindset shift: is generative AI works best when we treat it as a support tool, not a decision maker. I just want everybody to keep that in mind. Like it's a supporting function, not a decision maker. So now that we define what it is, let's go deeper on really how to most effectively use it, and think of it AI as a way to get a strong first draft faster. It might be an email, a policy update, a social post, or even a set of meeting notes. Personally, that's my favorite. I do a lot of meetings, and so meeting notes is probably one of the biggest ways I'm using it today. So, but the responsibility for accuracy, tone, final decision, that all stays within the human. And so when businesses use generative AI this way, it reduces the friction without increasing risk. So to use it well, two things need to be understood: where generative AI adds value and where human judgment still needs the lead. Generative AI is useful not because it's doing something futuristic, it's because it's helping everyday tasks that take up a lot of time. It shines when doing work that's repetitive, text heavy, hard to get started on. So honestly, this kind of like the moments of staring at a blank screen and wondering where you even start. Those are great ways at getting started. So specific areas where this type of generative AI excels at: drafting emails, newsletters, announcements, summarizing long documents, meeting notes. Like I said, one of my favorite. No one has time to read or reread it. And so what you're trying to do is take in a lot of information, sort it, organize it. So taking bullet point notes, half formed thoughts, and really turning them into polished documents. This is a really neat one. This has actually gotten a lot better over the past year, is creating these polished documents that actually look fairly good. And if you're a small to medium sized business, like you don't have whole teams of people creating content or creating really good looking documents for you. So this is a great way to take advantage of stuff. You think about rewriting the same message for different audiences, creating outlines, checklists, templates. And probably one that you're seeing a lot is on social media. It creates a lot of social media graphics, captions, just a strong starting point. And I think what a lot of people tend to do, and to keep this in mind, a lot of people tend to create this stuff and then not review it. So you might be even hearing about AI slop, and that's a term that's been coined and framed, and people have varying different degrees of feelings around this. But the reality is too many people don't take the time to really check on what it's doing and what it's producing. So ChatGPT and tools like it are a great starting point. It's a launch point, definitely not a finish point. The human is still an essential part of this process. So when we prompt it, we need to review it, and then we're the ones who really own the final outcome. This is like the important part when you think about the messiness that's come along with the generative AI. So when it's used this way, it does reduce the busy work. Keep in mind, it reduces busy work, not like important, critical, or creative thinking. But to use it responsibly, it's just as important to understand its limitations. So let's quick take a look at the other side of this: is what it's not good at. You need to set healthy expectations. It can be helpful, but only when you know what it isn't good at. So, a few things to keep in mind: AI is never going to know what matters most in your business. It takes input, produces output based on that data. It doesn't know your priorities, your customers, or your employees. It doesn't understand emotions or emotional nuance. So, maybe humans aren't so good at that at times either, but it will not pick up on subtle human dynamics. It doesn't know legal nuances. And this here one right here, I'll put with a caveat: in regulated industries like healthcare, finance, or legal, AI today is not equipped to handle compliance specific requirements. This is something that's changing pretty dramatically. And so it's getting better. And so this is where keeping up is really important and understanding where it can be from a compliance perspective. But ultimately, it is not a decision maker. It's a supporting tool. And when something goes wrong, the responsibility still sits with the business, not the tool. And finally, and one of the most important things is it's not accurate 100% of the time. So it's still a machine. And people forget that it does feel a little bit like magic. Every output does need to be reviewed before anything is sent out or published. So, a simple rule of thumb works really well here. If you wouldn't let a brand new employee or someone like that send out to a client without review, AI output should not be sent without careful review either. So, one of the things people often compare it to is when generative AI is treated like a junior team member. It's helpful, it's fast, but supervised, it becomes a really useful tool instead of a risk. And so that's why it's not going to replace people. It changes how they work, not whether they're needed. So once you understand that, the next question becomes like, where does this fit inside my business? And this is where people, I didn't want to just scream past this initial first part here because it's really good to understand the foundations here. And this is something people just race by. They're just hoping to get that easy button. But really, if you understand this, then you can understand, man, how does this fit inside my business? And so, thinking about practicality here, again, we're trying to keep things simple. You can't just go to complex. You can't just be complex with this. The goal of this whole process here is to start using, start the goal of this whole process is to walk away with one thing to start using inside your business. So, we just want to look at making life a little easier. So maybe it saves 15 minutes, maybe it saves an employee time on a reoccurring tasks. But here are kind of 5 starting points. So you think about internal communications, staff updates, updating policies, creating clear instructions, turning rough notes into organized content. Think about customer facing items such as appointment reminders. Frequently asked questions is another big one. Creating ideas for frequently asked questions is a great one. Response templates, email follow ups to team members that they use repeatedly. So think about the first draft is something you'll still review, though. Keep in mind, human owns the outcome. Meeting follow up and documentation, like I said earlier, personal favorite of mine. Summarize a lot of meetings, turning notes into action items. This is really good. I found myself when I'm in these meetings and I'm allowing AI to assist me, I could be really intentional about being involved in a meeting rather than trying to focus on taking all these very, very, very detailed notes. It's a great way to get started, and it'll create great recap emails. So you know how to communicate with team members, or if you have client meetings or prospect meetings, it's a great way to create recap emails quickly and thoroughly. So I want to pause at this next one just for a moment. Process documentation and standard operating procedures. We're going to be focusing on the demo on this one specifically. So I do want to maybe highlight this one in more specificity. Taking something the business already does and finally getting it written down. So one of the terms we used earlier was agentic AI, and that's where you're starting to see maybe news articles or social media about people. Hey, it runs half my business. In order to, I don't, we'll see about that's some of the hype. That's some of the hype that we're hearing. But in order to get there, you need a foundation of written documentation. In order to create any AI agents, like standard operating procedures and written documentation is so critical. So we're actually going to be focusing the demo on this because it really highlights how you're going to take that and give it to an agent one day. Because if nothing is written down, which I have not run into an SMB yet, no matter what industry, where every process is documented, written down. So this is a critical one where it can help you. So it can create SOPs and checklists so knowledge doesn't live in one person's head. So we'll focus on that. We'll come back around to this. And then finally, another way where you can start using it today is marketing content. I think this one is probably one of the first things that kind of came out there where people are using generative AI is in marketing content. So I think people are a little like cautious. They still want authenticity. And I think you need to keep in mind with the marketing content is that you still own the outcome. So again, use it as a rough draft, use it as a way of getting ideas out there, and you're still the one polishing the creative content. And so just keep in mind, none of these replace people. These are all processes that do not that they still require humans. They're tools to help employees, not replace them. They're simply there to reduce the friction. So as we look at putting this into practice, we wanted to make this a little bit more concrete. So we'll walk through an example here together momentarily, but we want to show you like ultimately the human decides by the prompt. Like that's one of the keywords we'll keep using over again. The human decides what the prompt will be. The AI drafts it, and we still need the human to refine it. And so you can still do multiple drafts. You can give AI feedback and tell it to continue to make something more clear or concrete. So the draft keeps getting more refined. So keep that in mind. So I again, as a highlight here, I will be using ChatGPT only because it's a free, simple, easy way of getting people into the platform, so you can follow along. Uh, but it is important to know that there's a lot of generative AI tools out there. ChatGPT, like we said, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, Claude. Claude is probably one of the more popular ones today. Perplexity, maybe a lesser known one. But before we dive into our demo, when you think about a prompt, because again, this is going to be a core part of what we look at, it is like there's in essence 5 levels to it, and really level one is an overly simplistic prompt. Like it's just not very. The more details you provide in your prompt with using generative AI, the better output you're going to get. So we'll show you the different levels and how you can get better and better and better prompts. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for 1 second. I'm going to jump over here to ChatGPT. I got everything pulled up correctly. There we go. And finally, share my. I had one thing in the way. There we go. Now I'm ready. Okay, so make sure everybody can see my screen. If you have ChatGPT, I really encourage you to follow along. If you have your own instance of what we're going to work through, so let me just set the stage here. So I wanted to highlight here ChatGPT. I have an instant mode. It'll go to automatic, but for the sake of brevity and keeping things short, because honestly, the different levels can take longer because they're refining your prompts. So for brevity, I'm going to keep things to instant just to keep things moving. But just know that that is an option, and I generally suggest leaving it to auto. So I want to set our scenario up just so you can kind of see what we're working with. But we created a fake company. It's called Lakeside Precision Manufacturing. It's a 45-person contract metal fabricator, and it serves industrial clients in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And we're going to use our fictitious person, Joe. Joe is definitely not a real, well, he might be a real person, but in our scenario here, he was created as a fake person. And he runs a press break for this Lakeside Precision Manufacturing firm for 19 years. So and to make matters worse, he retires in 19 days. And so everything Joe knows about the machine, every quirk, every shortcut, everything that it takes a new operator to learn in about 3 years kind of just lives in his head. So one of the things we're going to simulate here is this a supervisor's job to get into a document before Joe walks out that door so that he knows how to onboard a new employee successfully with a new employee operating this press break. So keep in mind, this is just a fictitious scenario, but Joe, this Joe exists in like every single company we've ever run into. There's a certain process or procedure or a system that you work through today that lives in somebody's head. And so keep this in mind. This can really be about any business and any core operating procedure. So I'm going to start out, and we talked about the level 1 through 5 prompt, and I want to just show you guys here. Sure everything looks good. Okay, great. So we're going to say write an SOP for operating a press break. level one. This is really simplistic. It's almost too simplistic, but we're gonna run with it. We're gonna say, hey, just give me an SOP for an operating and press break. So what comes back is super generic. The output reads like a pretty much like a Wikipedia article. We get some overview, some information, even some scoping here as it kind of works down. Uh, Personal protective equipment, that's important in this kind of scenario. So it's technically correct, like, right? Like it reads pretty much like a textbook, but it has nothing specific to the company, nothing about the specific machine, nothing about the materials being used. And so Joe would look at this and tell you that he's never seen a shop that runs anything like this. So again, we see here that a very simple prompt is creating an overly generic document that's not super helpful. So keep in mind when you're creating this, now again, this is overly simplistic. This is not right 100% of the time. You need to verify with your industry expertise the things that you're seeing on the screen here and making sure that that matches and matches well. So let's just quick look at, okay, so we have an overly simplistic level one prompt. What does level two look like? Let's get more specific. So we're going to get more specific and say, write an SOP for setting up a press brake to bend a 14 gauge steel at a 90-degree angle. So we're starting to add more specificity here. So we're going to let this run. As it's running, we're going to start to see materials show up here. You even see the scope here that it's talking about bending 90 degree on a 14 gauge steel roller. And so again, use your own scenario, find your own thing that makes sense in what we're doing here. But notice what's still missing. There's still nothing about the company, their tooling inventory, quality checkpoints, or really any of the quirks that we talked about earlier that Joe's learned. So it is getting more specific. It's starting to get there, but way too generic yet. I mean, Joe's just frankly put not going to be happy with this. And it honestly could belong to any fabrication shop. So we're starting to see where we're getting a little bit more specificity to it. And it's starting, got a little bit of safety in here, and we're getting, again, the 90-degree punch angle. We got the tonnage and appropriate gauge of steel. So we're starting to see a little bit better of a document. We're going to scroll down here. It's a little bit longer. And we're going to look at taking that up one more level. So let me grab my prompt here. The more information you give it, the better. So we're going to write a step-by-step standard operating procedure for a brake press operator at a contract metal fabrication shop. The machine is an AccuPress 7606. Again, we're building specificity in here. And so we're now talking about the machine. The task is setting up for a 90-degree bend on a 14-gauge cold rolled steel. Includes safety checks, tooling selection, machine setup, first article inspection, quality sign-off step, formatted as a numbered checklist. Write it for a new operator with basic fabrication experience. We just added a ton more detail in here. And so I'm going to go ahead and let this kick off. There we go. Let me pull over here. Like we're starting to get somewhere. It's really starting to structure at a checklist, itemized way, so that we can give this an employee, a new employee that's starting, and all of a sudden now we're starting to talk about building a process. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still some limitations, but we've made a lot from the level one to now to level three. We're getting a lot more hands-on. If I took a level one printout of this versus a level three printout and I handed it to a new employee, there would be a dramatic difference of the amount of questions that this new employee would have for us. We're getting somewhere. But still, Joe would still look at this, 19 years of experience, and frankly put, he's like, dude, we're missing a lot of weird, because we live in a real world. There's still quirks to this. And so ultimately, Joe's not going to be totally satisfied. He's happier than level one, but he's still not happy here in terms of being able to add what he needs. So this is 70% of the way there, though. We're getting there. We're starting to build more specificity. We're structuring it. We're formatting it. It's starting to name the correct machine. It's a great starting framework. So we're gonna work here one final step here in level 4 before we move off to level 5. And one of the things I want to highlight here for you before I paste this in is you need to remember, this was said before, but I want to pause and stop here and say anything you put in here, Be very careful. Is there confidential information? Is there customer names, order numbers, financial data? Do you care about this information getting out? If you are using a free account, which I highly recommend paying for this stuff because you can turn off the ability to use this information for training models. But if you're using a free account, I mean, anything you put in here will be used to train the AI. So, in other words, expect none of it to be confidential. Even with paid accounts, I do want to highlight that there's a lot of unknowns. There is a lot of things. They're doing a good job on security. A lot of these AI platforms and these companies. However, there's still a lot of vagueness, ambiguity about how this information is being used. So, is it required any compliance? I mean, stuff you put in here, you do need to be careful. If you have any compliance, just please know that this is not a great way to uh, get what you. So let me just go to level 4 here. What I did is it took me a little bit, but a level 4 prompt, and I promise you I will work my way through the whole prompt here. Is we did a fictitious interview with Joe. We gathered all his notes. So scroll to the bottom here. We're getting somewhere, man. We built a much better standard operating procedure. But let me just go up here to the top. We want to define the role. I'm an operations supervisor at Lakeside Precision Manufacturing. So we're defining who we are. We're giving business context. What industry are we in? What audience are we looking for? We're looking for new brake press operators with basic fabrication experience. Our objective is to document the institutional knowledge of a senior operator who is retiring in 90 days so a new operator can run the machine independently. I know there's a lot to this here. I promise I'll give you a great way to make this easy on you. I've actually put a little something together for you there to make this very simple. So don't feel like you have to memorize all this. But what I do want to highlight is we're giving a ton of context. This is really important. It takes I'll give you a really quick 3-minute way of creating a prompt just like this. So don't feel like you got to spend an hour on this to get this right. But I'm gonna the task here is I'm gonna paste rough notes from a 30-minute interview from our senior brake press operator Joe. And I want you to turn these notes into professional structured SOP with a new operator for basic fabrication experience could follow independently from day one. So a lot of these notes here, I won't go around the whole thing, but here's the operator notes. I did want to highlight here. In our fictitious scenario here, we went and interviewed Joe. Joe's been great. I mean, he gave us a ton of information. He gave us quirks. He did give us end of shift things that need to be done. He gave us machine maintenance during the shift because they're real. It's a real world. There are real quirks, and so we're gonna go ahead and kick this off. And again, what we're trying to see here is in 19 years of experience and in a very maybe what 10 minutes of just prompting back and forth, we've created a full length standard operating procedure where somebody could actually and again, look at this draft 1.0, you always review the context. And all of a sudden here we're starting to get way more specificity into our institutional knowledge. So if you look at the operator's note, that's Joe. We're taking institutional knowledge, and we're taking tribal knowledge and we're putting it into a standardized, documented framework. And so you can take this output, review it, have Joe look at it, and say, "What are we missing? Is there anything that didn't make it across, or maybe anything that isn't clear?" And then once we get full final approvals and we're drafting and we're revising, now we have something that we can give for onboarding a brand new employee. So think about all the processes that you have in your business. And if you take in this scenario here, it takes a 30-minute conversation with Joe and 3 minutes of AI formatting. And honestly, we have a whole documented procedure. We're taking that tribal knowledge and we're putting it in a documented way. It's a great way for people to really get systemized and building systems and processes. So I won't dive into specificity. Most of you might not even care about how a 90-degree angle is done in manufacturing 14 gauge steel roll. But the point is, we're taking things that are in people's heads. And now we're starting to build systems and processes. Still needs your check, still needs your thought. But one of the things, if you want to get to agentic AI, so if you start looking down the road and you want to start building an agent, and I specifically start to think about back office employees, like I wanted to take maybe a blue collar approach through this time. But if you look at the office administration, there's a lot of repetitive tasks that are done that still live in people's heads. What is that standard operating procedure that people are doing today that's totally living in someone's head that they can take and we can systemize this in a document? Because once this document is thoroughly vetted, completed, then we can take this document and we can actually start to build out AI agents, which is definitely not part of today's demonstration. Is there's a lot more complexity that comes with that, but most people are trying to jump to AI agents without understanding the documented processes. What is very foundational to the business needs to be built out first. So one of the things again that I'm hoping that starts to build some structure and some thinking is how do we take the things that we're doing every single day, and then how are we building that out to or build out our own processes? So if I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go just stop sharing just for 1 second. I post something in the chat. I want to make sure that everyone can have this little guy there. One of the things we talked about, building prompts. We just talked about the importance of building prompts. So rather than having you guys muddle your way through building what I just did in the level 4, is I built a little chat GPT agent that anyone can use. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again. I got the right thing, share. And here we go. We can build a business grade AI prompt in under 3 minutes. So let's look at, I have 3 minutes. Help me build a prompt fast. So what's your role and what kind of business do you run? There's like the things I went through very quickly with the level 4 prompt. It's going to take you step by step, 1 through 6, and it's going to help you build that prompt really quickly. And you can take that prompt, open up a new chat, and start to play around with building these starting to build different ways of. So for in our example, we built a standard operating procedure, but what we're looking at doing is building a better prompt quickly in a way that's helpful for you, so you don't have to learn how AI works and why it's there. So that's why I built this little GPT. Please feel free to use it. It's a great, again, it takes you questions 1 through 6 to really help build a great prompt, because as we just found out, the more specificity you build in your prompt, the better off you're going to be, and it's going to give you a much better outcome. So just know that that exists, and I won't take you through the exact steps there. And I will give you one more thing. There we go. It's an AI workbook that we put together. It has a couple core pieces. Everyone can grab this workbook. I just put it in the chat as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and let's see. It's just a PDF. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time. I just want to take you guys through it. There we go. So we got our AI workbook. We're trying to take people and really bring simplicity to this. People are making this much harder than it needs to be. And so really inside this workbook, there is an AI readiness self-assessment. Highly encourage you to print it out, document what you got going on. Another thing it has there is a use case picker. So a lot of people don't know where to start. Inside this workbook, it actually helps you decide what is the best use case that we can use generative AI today. Just keep in mind, this is all building upon itself. You can't just run over and start building agents to start replacing employees. That's just not how it works. You decide what use case you're going to go and pick, and then run with it. And then there is a prompt template. It's literally taking you through the same 6 steps that my GPT is going to take you through. So if you wanted a documented version of it, you can actually write down in that book and build it out by hand, and really building out your first 30 days with AI. So keep in mind here, there's a readiness assessment guide. Go ahead, take your test. It's going to give you a couple of different stages that you're in: foundations, kind of ready to pilot, or ready to scale. So it's kind of helping you figure out where you're at. I will say most people think they're ready to scale, or at the very least ready to pilot, but we what we start to find out is most people they need to focus on documentation, because again, if you don't have the documentation and basic procedures and written form, you won't be able to just pilot or scale anything. So keep that in mind. Go ahead, take that. The use case picker here. We're looking at what are three different tasks that you have that are reoccurring, repeatable. Don't spend a ton of time like overthinking this. Just whatever comes in mind. How many hours does it take you a week, and then who does it? And then it's going to start working your way through to figure out, okay, how are we going to take action on starting to use AI? And then finally here, or I shouldn't say finally, but one of the things here, the 6 components that I talked about, that's in the GPT that everybody should be able to have access to. And then here's the prompt that it's all doing for you. So again, that's something you can review. And then finally, this is going to be I shouldn't say a waste. It's never a waste. Business leaders have so many different things to think about. What you need to think about is, how do you take action on your priorities? And so one of the ways that we're really encouraging people is AI will eventually, again, this is not a hype statement. AI is going to become like a website, at least the way we perceive it today. It's not going to replace people. It's going to be part of what every business does. And so we are encouraging people today, you need to start today your AI journey. Even if it's a very immature process, how you interact with AI today will help really formulate the next 5 years of what AI does. And it changes every 6 months, so it changes very rapidly now. But you need to start your journey today, because the longer you wait, the harder it is to catch up to where everybody else is going. So highly recommend people take the first 30 days and start working your way through this process. So let me just pause here, because I make sure everybody has what they need. Are there any questions? I want to make sure that I'm making time for what people have here. If you have questions, go ahead, pump them in the chat. If you don't, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we have what we need. Is there anything that was confusing about today's webinar, about what you have going on? If not, that's fine too. I will send a follow-up email with both the chat GPT bot that I built, and it'll help you work through that prompt. Again, keep in mind, the prompt is incredibly important to how you get your output. This generative AI is one of the easiest ways to get started today, because the risk is very low. And again, start with the foundations. If you can think about employee onboarding, you can think about a repetitive process that just you do every day. Capturing tribal knowledge, really critical pieces. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or connect with us as an organization, please feel free to scan these QR codes. But hey, I do appreciate everyone's time today. I hope this has been helpful. I hope everybody's able to kind of work through this process. It's a journey. It's just going to take time. So just start that process. And yeah, I thank you everyone for showing up. Okay, take care, everyone.